All right. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Neeraj Kumar, and we have been taking Azure Talk, or we have been conducting Azure Talk for a while now. We have conducted more than 25 sessions on different topics on Azure, and in the same series and same sequence, today, we are going to discuss about Azure File Sync, a new feature, a preview feature which Microsoft has released, which makes us easy to use Azure File Share, which is the storage from Microsoft. Today, I'm joined by Lalit Rawat, who is Manager IT with in cloud with the Bajaj Financer, and he's also Azure Master of the Month. So recently, he was awarded. If you would have seen our chat in Azure Talk forum, and if you're not member of Azure Talk Telegram group, please feel free to do so. So you can go to t.me/Azure Talk and join our Azure Talk group, where you can post all your questions and answers. So I posted there that Azure, Lalit has become Azure Master of the Month. So this is an award which is given by Microsoft, and they recognize people with excellent skills, who are who are willing to share their knowledge on Azure, and trying to help and spread the knowledge on Azure. So first of all, congratulations to Lalit, on becoming Azure Master of the Month, and he's Master of the Month of November, and this is an award conferred by Microsoft. And he received this award because obviously he's very active on his blog. Plus, he is also very active in our Azure Talk forum, the website that we have, and plus also the forum. And he actively answers any question and answers in our forum. So I take this opportunity to congratulate Lalit on his great achievement, and we hope to see him continue grow, and probably he'll repeat the same feat again. Maybe next month again he'll be Master of the Month. This is typically every month Microsoft announces it. So I'm hoping that Lalit will get it again, and he will make it a hat trick at least. So Lalit, congratulations on your great achievement. And
Thank you,
uh,
Neeraj.
you know, so today, Lalit Rawat is, in fact, I'll be taking the back seat, and Lalit Rawat is going to drive this session. So with that, we'll straight away get into the agenda. So the agenda is as I said, we'll talk about Azure File Sync. So the agenda that we have, organize our topics in modular way. So we'll talk about overview, what is Azure File Sync and how does it work, and what's the feature, what's the capability. We'll talk about the file sync server features, in terms of what's it's available, what feature it offers, and how we can use that in enterprise, at enterprise level, and how can we make use of it. Then we'll talk about what are the different components that Azure File Sync has, and how those components interact and how it works in sync to make this magic happen. We'll also talk about the file sync server prerequisites. So you need to have certain software or certain requirement is there. So we'll talk about that, so that when you're doing that in production, when you're doing that in an environment, you can take care of that. Then we'll take any question and answer, and then finally it will be followed by the demo. For the quality's sake, I have muted all the audience. So if you have any question, I have all my members, Azure Talk core group members who are actively there, so they'll answer your question in there. And in case if you need to speak up, please type in your response in the chat, and we can unmute yourself, and you can ask your question. So but please feel free to type your question in the chat, and so that we can maintain a good quality of our recording. And the session is being recorded. After this session, we'll publish it on to our website. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide, and I will let Lalit take the lead. Lalit.
Sure, Neeraj. Thanks, Neeraj, for introduction, giving me an introduction, and thank you for your support and guidance to get into the Azure Master Award. And thanks for your motivation, support, and all the Azure Talk members and Really thanks for all the our community hero like Sakti, Uday, and Neeraj, Vivek, and Asi Srivastav, who is our devs guru. All of them are really, I learned each and everything from all of you. So thank you so much for being a part of Azure Talk and, getting learning from here. And thank you, Neeraj, for creating such a beautiful group here. So let's just walk through the what is the Azure file sync and what is the requirement of the Microsoft. Why Microsoft uses the Azure file sync in place. He has already a file share is available in the storage account. So what file sync is there? As you are aware of that, Azure file share has not done the like they don't have that much permissions, like you don't have the NTFS permissions, and apart from that, the syncing to the your objects or the services, the data you wanted to move on premises to Azure, that you need either you can create a storage account, then you have to migrate either the agent copy or the storage tool, which is it's time taking. If you have the data for 2 terabyte or like say 4 terabyte, it's been always like how you can sync your data, and your customer will ask how you are going to migrate. If the connection is break, again you need to resync those things, the files and the folders there. So what Azure File Sync will provide you is just give you a connection your on premises to the Azure, which they will be using. The couple of services which we are going to talk in this slide, that they'll that things would be automatically it is going and syncing, like you're seeing in the diagram that there will be two server in between. The Azure file share is there, and this is the Azure file sync. Uh, File sync agent is running on that, and that will be in the backup vault. So all the files would be getting replicated to the cloud and getting replicated to the other data centers. So the files here cannot provide you that flexibility, that if you have the multiple location, that the 10 locations or 50 locations, you don't have that capability to sync all those files automatically. Just if you're just syncing your files from on premises to Azure, what you do is just sync it to the cloud, and you're losing your all the NTFS permissions and other things, which is they have removed from in the Azure file sync. Can we move to the next slide?
Sure. So before we move on to the next slide, I will just give an idea. So, right, so Azure File Sync is still a service which is in preview, and this helps you to, if you are aware and if you have followed our Azure Talk session on storage. So Microsoft Storage offers you different kind of storage. So you have blob storage, and then you have Azure File Storage, and you have Azure Queue Storage. So this particular service, leverages the Azure File Share. So now, if you use Azure File Share, in past you would have seen, have to mount it using SMBs. This provides a file as a service offering for you, and it is an SMB portion that you have. But in case, you want to, I mean, your user is sitting on-prem and trying to access it, they will always go over internet, or they will go over express route if you have enabled express route public peering. But let's say you want to make sure that when they are trying to access any data, and that data, if it is hot, it's frequently accessed, I don't want my end user to go and access it from file share from cloud. Rather than, I can have it locally cached on the file server, my local file server. And that's what's the role of the Azure File Sync tool is. So basically, when you install Azure File Sync, or when you configure your Azure File Sync, it will create a conduit between your user, which is sitting on-prem, and between the your file share, which is in the cloud. Now, instead of user going directly to the file share in cloud in Azure, now user will will first check, or the client will first check the data in the local server, which is file sync server that we're talking about. And then if it is available, it will be rendered locally. So that way you will make sure that data the end user traffic doesn't go over internet, plus the file is accessible over LAN, and it's a faster experience and it's easier experience for the end user. And in case that data is not available locally, then this file seek agent coming sitting over here will go and get it from the file, retrieve it from file share, and then render it to the end user. So that's the concept of the file sync. uh, and in the past, if you really want to do it, you had to use third-party tools. There were third-party tools which provide the same kind of local caching of file share or blob storage, and basically to use the blob storage. But with this, you don't need to buy any third-party tool, and you can use this to provide the caching facility for your file share, which is in cloud, Azure file share, which is in cloud, and you can provide that end user experience, a seamless and smooth end user experience. All right, so let's move on to the next slide.
Sure, Neeraj. Did we move to the next slide?
Yes, we did.
I'm not able to view. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, in this slide, we are going to talk what is the Azure file sync features. Like you'll have the ACLs. ACLs is you have the access control list, which is syncing your on-premises Windows ACLs, which is syncing to your file server, and that is the same would be replicating to your Windows endpoint, which is like if you have an one location in Central India and another one is in South India or East US or West US, the same replicas, same permission replications which you have already preserved or you kept over there, that will be replicated all across your global or the data centers, which which will be helping, like you no need to maintain your permissions and all. And apart from that, the Microsoft has removed the hard links in the sense like you have hard link, and the symbolic link means like if you just configure some hard links or configuration link or symbolic links with your files, which is being skipped. So that is another things. And apart from that, the mount point is nothing but suppose if you wanted to mount it to your root server endpoint, or you wanted to give the permissions to a couple of other data center with the namespace, the server endpoint namespace and all, which you can it is partially supported sometimes, as this features is in preview. So they just supported the partially, but it works for that. And junction and the repair points, which is they just skip junction and repair points, like refresh points, in the sense like if you have some file server, if you worked on the file server, they have couple of points in between. So what they can do is that are not supported. Like your file server, first you have couple of network drives and all, and you have just put the refresh points and all. So that is not, as of now, it's not mature that much. So it is supported, but NTFS permissions, yes, it is fully supported, and SPOS file is supported, and it is not blocking anything. Apart from that, ADTS alternate data streams is preserved but not synced. So it just completely give you the permissions in overall, or just give you an a look, a feature of your on-premises file share server, the similar way they launched the file sync server. So it has the good capability, which making you to if you want to mounted your data, or if you wanted to migrate 2 terabyte, 5 terabyte, just you no need to do anything. Just you need to get in the file sync server and sync it. So it will the network bandwidth and a couple of other issues which is comes in picture while you're migrating some other tool. It just whenever it is connecting to the network, it just starts syncing all the data to your storage account, to your file server, and even it is supporting up to 5 TB in the Azure file share. So
Yeah.
which will help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neeraj,
So
do you want to add something to that? Yeah,
yeah.
please.
So like in terms of I'm getting audio feedback, so if you can go on mute. Yeah. So in terms of like, there was question, does it support NTFS? Yes, it does. It's fully support, NTFS if, as long as you're accessing it through the file sync. Remember, access control list is supported. But if you directly access it from, the cloud, the endpoint that you have, that file share, Azure file share that I'm talking about, it doesn't, Azure file service, doesn't support it. But if you have, Azure File Sync configured, yes, it's fully supported. I also want to, point out the NTFS compression. So basically, it does support the NTFS compression. In case there is a, data has to be, so it's always compressed so that you save on the bandwidth requirement. You don't have to really worry about the bandwidth, that what's going back and forth the data. And plus, the sync that's happening, if you don't have Expressor, nothing to worry. The data goes over internet in encrypted format, so you don't require that. Anybody can consume it as is without having to set up any special network infrastructure. You just need a file server, you need file sync on that, and then you need the Azure subscription where you will create a storage account, and you will create Azure file share there, and then you will configure your Azure file sync. It also supports mount point, but it's not fully supported. As I said, like, this is still just partially supported. So mount point is where you mount a share on a, like, as a folder. So basically, if you have, let's say, a drive, instead of giving a drive later, you want to mount it as a folder. So it is also supported, but not fully. But that's something Microsoft is working on. Then the support will come. So in terms of the functionality, these are the functionality which is offered by file sync. Again, as I said, it's a preview feature, and Microsoft is still working to expand that feature and make it more rich in terms of supporting all the services which you would expect from a full-blown file server. All right. Let's move on to the next slide. We do have questions. We'll take those questions, while we will do the demo. During the demo, we'll also take those questions, and we'll also try to answer those questions in the chat. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, just give me a minute. Yeah. So now we are talking about what are the versions, or the features of what it does support basically. So the file sync server features, they are supporting Windows Server 2016, which is in data center standard, even Windows Server 2012 R2, which have the data center and the standard. Apart from that, it support the antivirus solutions, because if you have the financial organization, not financial organization, other organization, while you are copying the data or while you're sharing your data, that they will, what they can do, they put it their antivirus solutions. So it will, just your data would be, get into those antivirus, and it will filter the data. Either you are just sending the correct data or not. So based on that, or there is any, viruses or something like that, that it will, those kind of the solutions they are supporting, like McAfee and Microsoft has their own antivirus which is support the backup solutions. So the backup solutions is something which you can configure your backup vault, which Neeraj has already showed in the first slide. So it will take the backup of your all the file servers, whatever the files you just move to your Azure file share. Apart from that, the encryption solution, you can encrypt your data into the while you are sending, or in Azure, like uh, in storage account, there is an encryption feature which will help you, to encrypt your data completely, and that will provide you to facilities to completely encrypt your data, and that won't be hacked by someone else. Apart from that, the good feature which is there is NTFS, encrypted file system, which is, even though the whatever the files you have in the NTFS format, and those files would be, is going to be encrypted as well. And this is a nice features. Even though your permissions would be preserved and your data is going to be encrypted, so it means they have a lot more features which is coming with the file syncs, and it is going to be hit into the market. And apart from that, there is a region availability which is recently, as this feature is in preview. So you'll have in the best US, best Europe, Southeast Asia, and Australia East. This is a four region. As of now, this file sync features is available, but very soon, I guess it will be available in all the regions.
Yeah. So I'll take a
Yes.
minute, to answer a question like, Rahul had what all, it doesn't support Linux. So it's only supported on Windows Server 2016 and 2012 R2. Okay, and you cannot even go with 2008. So, and Ruskar has a question where this file server. So when I'm referring to file server, these file servers, we're referring to on-prem. So on-prem will have these file servers which will talk to your Azure file share over internet, and data gets replicated over internet. So, and again, it's a preview feature, so it's not available in all the regions. It's only available in West US, West Europe, Southeast Asia, and Australia East. These are the regions that it is available. In terms of your the backup solution that you have, antivirus and backup solutions that you have. So this supports all, basically all the antivirus solution will make sure that its scanning is happening. It also supports the backup solution. So there are a list of the items that you can expect when you are installing or when you're configuring your Azure file server. File sync. Now there was a question, which I probably would like. So like Equal has a question where it's saying like, if we want to across to Azure Region Linux servers. So, yes, you can have Azure file share, and that can be mounted over using CIFS protocol over Linux also. So you can do that without any problem. But this file sync server cannot be installed on Linux file share. But you can mount the drive of this file share on Linux server. Yes, you can certainly do that without any problem. All right, so let's move on to the next slide.
Thank you, DS. So the next slide would be more over to your Azure File Sync Core component. Okay. The next slide is for your Azure configure Azure File Sync. How you're going to configure your file sync server? What are the prerequisites which you need to work on? One is the storage account. The second one is you need to create the storage account. Inside that you need to create the Azure files here, and the on-premises server which is supported is in 2012 R2 or 2016 R2 with the latest PowerShell. The PowerShell version is 5.1, and if you just put this command over there, and you will be able to find that the version of PowerShell, and then it will ask you to install that module, the latest module which is supported the Azure file sync. And then apart from that, you need a name, subscription, the resource group, and the location would be best use for the preview. And the file location cannot be a C drive or the D drive. It should be already it will be meshed to your the folder name. It you cannot even we can tell more about on this part in demo. So this is
Yeah,
from
so
my
this
end.
is yeah, so this is high level steps, right, which is involved when you really want to configure your Azure file sync, right? So the high level step that involves is you will first create a storage account. That's the first thing that you will do because that's where you will create your file share. So Azure file share is as a part of your storage account. So you will create a, your general purpose storage account. So there are two kind of storage account that you can create: general purpose and blob storage. And again, if you have difficulty understanding this, please do refer to our past Azure talk. You can go to www.cloudeasy.com, and there we have published all past Azure talk, and we had covered Azure storage there. So you will create a general purpose storage account, and then once you have created a general purpose storage account, you will go ahead and create an Azure file share. So like in terms of your uh, Azure file share is where you will start, and you will start use it for your hosting or your data. So actual data is going to reside in Azure file share. So you create a storage account, you create the Azure file share, and once you have created that, that's there, you can access it over internet in cloud. Now you need to bring it to on-prem using the Azure file sync. That's where their on-prem component starts. So this section is your on-prem. This two section is in Azure. And this section, the third step that that you have to do on-prem. So let's say on-prem, you'll have to decide your file server. So let's say it could be only Windows 2012 R2 or 2016 R2, anything, and with the latest PowerShell. So now you install Windows 2012 R2 or 2016, and then you install PowerShell. So make sure that version is 5.1, and you can use $PS version table -ps version to really find out what is the latest version that you can do. You can find about that. So the command is again the $PS version table.ps version. So that will tell you what is your version. Now once that is done, then you have the next thing is you have to make sure that you have PowerShell of your Azure PowerShell. So basically you will install the Azure Resource Manager module. So this is the command that you will use to install the PowerShell module for Azure Resource Manager, because we are using Azure Resource Manager, the modern portal, not the classic portal, which is the older one. So make sure that, and once that is done, so these two steps, like 3 and 4, these two steps you have to take, perform on-prem or on the server where you're trying to do that. Then finally, when you try to do this, you will require a subscription, which is well known. You'll require a resource group name and location also, and then you configure your file sync. So that's the high-level step that you will take in order to perform or configure the Azure file sync. In fact, we'll walk through these steps in our demo. So let's move on to the next slide quickly, and then we can talk about so let's go ahead and let's look into the demo.
Sure, Neeraj.
Yeah, so let's let me share my screen. I made you presenter, Lali, so you can go ahead and share your screen.
Sure, let me just share my screen.
And I will unmute everybody, and if you have any questions, please you can speak up.
Neeraj, this is Uday.
Hey.
Hi. So one doubt I have on the Azure file sync. So this file sync is access over internet, right? So
Yes.
say I have a file sync configured in Azure VM, and I don't want to travel the path over the internet. So I can enable the service tag for the storage to access the file sync. So that supports on the file sync to take a private path on the accessing the shares if I enable the service tag.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and in fact we'll have to validate that, but based on my past experience. So there are two ways that you can do it, right? So you can do service tag you talked about, but remember, even service tag will allow outbound internet access, so it will still go over internet. But I think what you were referring to service endpoint, the storage service endpoint, which gives you a private path, a private conduit. So yes, if you have VM, if your file server is running in Azure and you enable service endpoint at your VNet level, yes, it will take that path to sync the file to Azure file share, surely.
Yeah, because this is primarily, somebody talk about, Azure file sync, and, we want to leverage the Azure file sync because that gives a lot of benefits, because I don't need, the huge disk to be provisioned in Azure VM to, bring, 10 TB data into the one drive, because right now the limitation of the single drive is, very minimal, but aggregating with multiple disks we may achieve. But, people still, they look like, okay, why I have to provision a lot of big storage, big servers to accommodate more disk and get a more storage. So now FileSync provides a lot of good features. So with the benefit of service endpoint, if I'm privately able to access the service, then the subscription users who don't want to send the data out of the internet, and even the path is encrypted, so they can leverage. It's a compliance meet what I see. And if they want the centralized some data to be accessed by all that, different subscription user from the same location, still the file sync service we can enable the service endpoint so that all the subscription users or VMs in resides in the every subscription can securely access, and the centralized data management is very well managed. So I don't need to look into the encryption part because encryption is enabled. I have a compression. Yes, I have compression. I have caching well managed because I am using Azure VM to communicate to the Azure file sync. The speed is very good. The bandwidth I get between the Azure file sync and if I use from Azure VM, yes, it's pretty managed. I have a solution ready, centralized location for all the subscription users, even different VMs in a different subscription. This clears me a lot of centralized solution accessing data with a huge capacity.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
right. So there was a question from Davinder, right? So he was talking, is it on the Store Simple, Davinder? So it's on work on the same principle, but Store Simple is much bigger. This is only restricted to Azure File Sync, and it's at that Azure File Share level. So it doesn't work at the blob layer. This is service only for Azure File Share. So if you have a file server and you want to keep it on-prem, you can do that. So that's the File Sync services. All right, so Malik.
Yes. So you are able to view my screen, right?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So basically, let's start the demo. So the first of all, we need to create a storage account. So here we're just going and creating one storage account. The storage account as I have already created, but let me just show you.
And yeah, and remember, the storage type or the account type has to be general purpose,
Right.
right? Because that's where you will get to create Azure File Share. Otherwise, if it is blob storage, you can only create blob accounts.
So let me just the same existing resource group, and
So
there is new features.
if you can go up a little bit, Lalit, a little bit, yeah. So this is where you specify the name of your storage account, and then obviously the account type. This is where general purpose blob storage. So make sure that you select general purpose, because if you select blob storage, you will not be able to create files share. So let's click on the general purpose. Then this is the performance tier, which is standard and premium, HTTP based, SSD based. Then you have replication. So this is where you can access setup. So you don't want to, depending on how you want to configure, you can configure LRS, GRS, or ZRS, depending on what you need. So maybe we can select LRS in this case, Lalit, local redundant service. Select LRS, yeah, and then you have secure transfer required, which will enforce people to use HTTPS all the time, which you should be doing. So let's go ahead and set it up enabled. Secure transfer required, you can set it to enabled. Yeah, and then specify a subscription, and then resource group. This is where you specify the resource group, and then you specify the location. Now this is where service endpoints comes into the picture, and which Uday was referring to. So if you click on virtual network, which is still it is in preview, but if you really want to use that, so if you click on enable, so in that case you will be able to set it up, and you can link this storage account to a VNet. So now your VNet will have a special private backbone connection into this storage account. So that's about the service endpoint. So that's what you can do. But anyway, so yeah,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
yeah, so you can
the VNet would be on, yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, so you can see, like, you can look at it will connect your storage account to the VNet, and you don't have to go over internet. It will go through the backbone of Microsoft. So you can specify those. And this is what exactly that you were referring to.
Yeah, that's right.
So as of now, as the file sync is support only on best US, so I'll just go ahead and select the best US here, and I'll just get and disable this features over here, as I don't have any VNet in best US. So I'm just creating a storage account here.
Yeah, so Davinder has a question, what is the encryption mechanism? So like, Microsoft uses, if you really want very specific details, I can share you those. But Microsoft encrypts and compresses before it gets transmitted.
Right.
So I can share you those details. All right. So at this point of time, yeah, Lalit has just created a storage account. Now with there, he has to create a file share. So let's wait for
Right.
the deployment to complete.
So, as I have already, created one more file storage account, to get in this demo completed on time. So this is our cloud web files, and here I'm just, this deployment is also completed. So here I'm just going and creating one files here.
So if you can
Just
just slow down a bit, Lalit, so that people can see, if
sure.
you can go back. Yeah. So, once you create the storage account, under overview section, you will see there are four kind of, storage that you can really create or use when you create a general purpose storage account. One is blob storage, which obviously in this case we have to create the Azure file share, and which if you look at this, it says file share that uses SMB3 protocol, and that's how basically you access your files. So it basically supports SMB 2.1 and SMB3 is the protocol that you use, and you have to make sure that port 445 is open, and we have given demo for all this in our Azure Talk, and I can paste you those links which you can refer. But the point is, make sure that you have general purpose storage account, and there you create Azure files as a system, right? So let's go
Right.
ahead and create click on files for me. Yeah, so this is where you will create your share. So Azure file, you have to create a file share. So that's your beginning point. This is your cloud file share.
And the limit would be is 5 TB. If I'll just put it this much, it is always give me an 5120 would be bus. So
Yeah, so you cannot put in more than 5 TB of your size. So the size
right.
has to be less than 5 TB.
So that's it from here in the file server, and
So
let's go
so
ahead. Yeah.
just to recap what we did, we created a storage account, a general purpose storage account, and then we created a file share, which is Azure Talk, and assigned a quota of 5 TB. You can specify quota depending on how much is the requirement. You can specify your quota. So in this case, we have specified the quota to be 5 TB.
So now we are going and creating the file sync
So now
from the
with this,
Microsoft.
yeah, from this, so these were the steps that you had to do in Azure. Now the next set of steps you would perform, as if in your on-prem. So this is what you need to do. Azure File Sync. This configuration has to be done on-prem. But right now we will configure Azure File Sync service on the portal, and then we'll download the agent. That agent needs to be installed on your file server locally. So in this case, since we don't have on-prem, so we'll use a VM in a in Azure, which will act or which will probably will pretend to be a server in on-prem, and we'll install the file sync agent there. But before you go there, we have to configure the file sync from the portal. So this is what we're doing.
Yeah. Thank you, Neeraj. So I'll just how you're going and from the marketplace storage the file sync server file sync is still in preview. Click on the file sync, and I'll give the name of AzureTalk file demo. Okay, and I will use an existing one which is my file sync,
Yeah. So
and
so
it
what are
is
what are
it
we
is going
doing?
and
Yeah. So what
into
are
the
we
best
doing is
ways.
we are creating a file sync. in Azure. So basically, it's a reference that we are creating, and after that, we'll configure the setting inside. This is the file syncs service that we are creating. So once we create this, then we'll have to configure, or we have to link this to our server and to our file share in Azure.
Right. So now our file sync is was created. I just clicked on the resources and you can see the file AzureTalk file sync demo services which we have created. It's been created and then just takes in 2 minutes. So here it is an overview and the file sync group and the activity log, access and the
So
tag.
okay, so let's pause and discuss a little bit about this. So this console, what you see here is your Azure File Sync service. That's your high-level container. That's where you create it, and then within that you will have multiple sync group. This sync group represents the actual synchronization of your Azure share and onto your on-prem server. So you will create, let's say you have multiple file share and you're syncing, different file Azure file share. In that case, you'll create multiple sync group, and each sync group can be subscribed, or you can have registered server, multiple registered server against each of the sync group. So you create Azure, sync service first, and then within that you will create sync group, which will represent the actual synchronization of the Azure file share and servers, which is on-prem file server.
So the first step which we have to perform is to create the sync group, which is taking your just created as a sync group and I'll select my subscription. Here, what it is needed, storage account, the storage account which should be presented in your best US, and in that you will have in files here. Okay. So
Yeah.
as I already created the files here, here the configuration should be, this is your first cloud endpoint. Cloud endpoint is nothing but your storage account where you are, mounting the sync group, like the Azure file sync is mounting your storage account, and you can add multiple storage accounts from the from the apart from that this storage account you can add the multiple storage accounts. For multiple storage account you need to create the cloud endpoint. So this is the cloud endpoint and the on-premises endpoint which we are going and performing into the on-premises server.
Yeah. So
Nish,
this,
you
yeah.
want to add something?
Yeah, so this is your cloud endpoint. So the cloud endpoint, you can just say name itself. It says this is the endpoint of your Azure file share which exists in cloud. This is one way we are registering this, and then we'll also have server endpoint or local endpoint which will be sitting on-prem. So in all this will sync to each other. So this is what we are doing as a part of sync group. You are adding those. So you specify sync group name, then you specify storage account, and within that you specify your file share that you really want to create as a part of that sync group. So this is your cloud endpoint, because it's a we are talking about Azure file share, which is in cloud.
Thank you, Neeraj. I'm just creating the file sync group. Now, um, as my sync group has been created here, okay, and the second step is really an important step, that is which we need to register the server, like how we are doing into the Azure backup through the Mars region, that we need to take the key and all the things, the same things which we are going to perform almost similar. Let me just share my server screen here.
Yeah, so just can you come back to the portal? Yeah, so let me explain this a bit in more details. So register server is where you will, so you have cloud endpoint. Now you have created a sync group, and you have added this, cloud endpoint. Now you will register your servers here so that this can get synced to the local server. So this is where you will add those servers, and as a part of that addition, you'll have to install an agent on your file server, in on-prem, and you can add as many servers as you want. If you want that the same file to be available in multiple branch offices, let's say you are different branch offices, one in America, one in Europe, one in APAC, and you want all these three servers to synchronize, you can add all those three servers here, and the users can locally access it as a branch office server, file server, and you can add all those, you can register all this here.
Even though that should be including the applications and all, which couple of whatever, if you have the 10 or 15 offices, all the servers would be synced to the one cloud, and we are going to register over here. For that, we're just going and following the first step to install, download and install the Azure Sync agent, and the second step would be uh, once it is done, we'll just go and register it. So let me, just go with my server. Would you able to view my screen, the server one?
No, it's black. No, it is still black.
I'm just sharing my screen again. Yes. Now?
Let's see.
It is visible for me at least.
Yeah, but I see the browser, not your server.
Yeah, it's a browser is there. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Now I see. Yep.
so as I have been already prepared for this, so I have been already logged into my portal and server as
Yeah,
and
so this is
go
this is
ahead
the
and
yeah, so this is the server, right? So this is on the server. We are going to do what? We are going to install the agent, file sync agent, right?
so what we need to do first, we have to go to the local server and turn off the internet security over here as recommended by Microsoft article. And once this is done, we'll just go to the file sync group, and this is our AzureTalk file sync demo, and click on the register server, and I'm just going and downloading the sync agent here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is the agent that you need to install on your server.
Right. So here, when you just come to in this page, it will just show you only two options. When you just click on the download, whether you're going to download for server 2012, this is for MSI for server 2012 R2, and this is MSI for 2016. So as I have been, my operating system is 2016. I just select 2016 MSI, and I'm going to download over here.
So in nutshell, we are just downloading this agent, and we will install and configure on the file server. So this is the step that you have to do on your on-prem file server, basically.
Right. So now it is downloaded. I'm just going and installing it.
So Rahul has a question. What would be the business case can be replaced on? Rahul, you can unmute yourself. I've allowed people to unmute, so maybe you can speak up.
So now, in the meanwhile, I'm just following next, and
Sure.
going and configuring it. So next step is I accept the permissions, and here is the location where you're going and keeping your source file sync, and these three components is going to be installed: the work folder, the Azure file sync, and the management tool for the file sync agent. And if you wanted to go ahead and update your file sync automatically from the Microsoft, you just choose all those things, or if you don't want, just select do not use. And then apart from that, it will just go, and if you just click on this, if there is any bugs or any fixes are there, then it will be automatically collect the data and send it across to the they'll work and then release the patches. So which is helping you to work on this. And I'll click on the installed. Yes, Rahul, go ahead and you can ask your questions.
Hi Niraj, Lilith. I'm looking for the solution to replace my on-premises file server actually. So
Hmm.
can we completely shut down our on-premises server on file servers that currently utilized by all our end users, like for their daily activities, like the accessing Excel sheets and PDF files and all their raw data that they use on day-to-day basis?
So you can use Azure File Share, to host your files into Azure. But the challenge that you will have is today Azure File Share doesn't support NTFS permissions. So if you want to give permission to your end user using Azure AD, Azure AD is the tool that identity and access management. It doesn't support that, and it also doesn't support NTFS permission. But with Azure File Sync, you will be able to, maintain that permission level and it can work. So yes, in a combination of Azure File Storage and Azure File Sync, you will be able to, achieve wherein you can move off of your on-prem and you can keep your data in Azure Cloud and Azure File Storage.
Uh,
Okay,
uh,
Neeraj.
Ni-
Uh, okay, and how the end users would be accessing? Will there be any change the way they access as of
Uh,
now, or?
So there won't be any, it will be transparent. They will access always with a namespace, right? So they will have, so you can maintain the same namespace and that will transparently in the background will resolve and bring the data from Azure to, your local file sync server and render it from there and vice versa. So for user, it will be transparent. For user, nothing will change.
Neeraj, one thing here, I see the two approaches which I see from the Roggles question. Because when we say the Azure file sync, yes, Azure file syncs leverage the internet as a the endpoint to access the storage and save our files. But in case if all the user doesn't have an internet and they want to still store the files in the Azure file sync, they want to leverage Azure file sync agent in a centralized location where the existing file server is there,
Okay.
so that protection of the file server will be extended to the Azure. That is the one solution. They don't need to shut down, but the benefit of the hybrid cloud backup will be available with Azure File Sync. The other solution, if they have a directly, what you said, if they have directly internet, yes, they can leverage that accessing through the mount point as a file folder, I mean, the drive level, and they can put all the files and that can sync actually. But if they say directly, we can remove the solution of the existing file server. It's based on the whether the users are internal users. If they have internet, then they can move on. If they don't have internet and they have a security issues and concerns, they still leverage. But your cloud, I mean, whatever the data in file server, it can sync to Azure File Sync as well as a the extended copy.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you. One question again. The data will travel over the internet, right? So
Correct.
the whenever we access the data or whenever we upload the data on the Azure, there would be ingress and output charges. Okay, so it may
So
be
there will
like.
not be ingress charges, but there will be egress charges. So when you upload, you will not pay, but when the data is retrieved from blob storage to end user to file sync server, yes, you will pay that egress charge.
Okay.
So
And Neeraj, one thing I just want, I mean, it reminds me because the Azure file syncs again, it's in the underlying of the storage account. The storage account, we really, approach of for the security reasons, we can use the service endpoint for, connecting only through the private routing from Azure VM. But again, other way, the people want to use Azure file sync from on-premise, and they don't want any of the the outside world to keep an eating on the file sync endpoint. We can enable the storage firewall to the block on the IP level. and get the file sync only accessible from the particular environment or particular, the gateway proxy level. So that's how I think we'll have more security if we have
Yeah.
repo. Yeah.
Right to that, and this is really a nice point because still that's
Yeah.
to the storage account. So here
Okay,
the
so let's
storage sync agent
let's
is, yeah.
so let's get
Yes,
back to
please.
the demo. So where are we? We completed the storage account agent setup, and
The
then
uh, Now the sync agent is started, and it is saying that you didn't complete the prerequisite. So it just means that in this OS version you don't have the latest version of Microsoft Azure files here. So it does not have the the latest update. This is which is 5.1 is required,
so this is for PowerShell, right?
right?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so if you don't have the latest PowerShell, it will alert you. So basically, that's the alert which Lalit got it. So now he has to install the latest PowerShell.
Um, Basically, that the PowerShell requirement is that the backend it connects to the the REST API calls. Is it the PowerShell requirement is that?
Yes, yes. So there is a component of Azure File Sync which in the background will connect to the file storage and performs this synchronization back and forth. So it uses those REST APIs calls, and you need the latest Azure ARM PowerShell.
Yeah, yeah. I think the consideration right now, the case scenario is that the server which we are installing, it's a file server or the folder which we want to sync to the file, the Azure cloud, right, Niraj?
Yeah, so this is what we are doing on the file server. Yes.
So I have already opened in the file sync, and this is just for your reference. So the versions and all, you'll get it over here. You need to run couple of commands that get module PowerShell list and the select name and the version and those commands. So which
Yeah,
will
so if you run this command, $ps version table dot ps version, that will get you the version of your PowerShell. So if you type in $ps version table, $ps version table, I just pasted it.
yeah, I'm just doing it.
Type in $ps version table dot ps version table, or you can paste,
Dot.
yeah, dot, no, so yeah, dot ps version, and then if you hit enter, so it will show you. So right now your PowerShell version is 5.0, which is perfectly fine, but we don't have the latest Azure RM module. So you will use install dash module space Azure RM space dash allow clobber. That's the command that you have to copy there. Yeah. So this command will make sure that you have the latest and greatest Azure Resource Manager module of PowerShell. So this is,
Meanwhile, okay, I'll create some file here itself.
yeah. So basically, you need to now configure your local server to decide which folder that you want like to use. Say yes. Go to
Let
the
us say yes.
PowerShell. Okay, so now. So basically the command that I pasted in the chat is what will help you to update your resource manager module, so the latest one. So Ashish had a question. Ashish, you can unmute yourself and ask your question while we are doing this.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, Ashish, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, my question, I just wanted a clarification that so Azure File Sync is in some way helping us to sync our on-premises file server with the file share in Azure, so that we can use that file share for our workloads hosted in Azure, and then the file share on premises will still there. So I mean that's what the use case would be, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So it will use the Azure file share, which is in cloud, as a backend to post all colder data, kind of like, the data which is frequently accessed will be on your file server on-prem, and then anything which is not used, and it will intelligently determine that, and it will push those data using file sync service into Azure Blob Storage. Not sorry, Azure file share. Now in future, if you require that data, then this file sync agent will intelligently pull that data from file share and bring it locally and render it to the user.
Okay. So it's not like something replacement of on-premise file share, a file server. It's like complementing that file server to act more intelligent.
Correct. So basically what you will do is to think about it. If you have on-prem, let's say you have 10 file servers, and if you start using blob storage, you can reduce your number of file servers from 10 to maybe 2 or 3. And rest other data, you don't have to store on-prem. All this can be in the blob storage, in the Azure file share. So yeah, Azure file share. I mean, you'll reduce the number of servers required, but you'll still need some locally so that users can. So this is something like, I don't know how many of you come from Windows world. There used to be RBOS, remote branch office servers, feature of file share, file server, which was the Windows. They used to call it RBOS. It's the same concept, but at the cloud scale.
And Neeraj, and this is like what Ashish said, it's an extending your data of the on-premise to the cloud, and so that where the cloud applications want to leverage that files, they can use that file sync or they wanted to, Azure server or any server, wants to leverage the files, they can easily pick it from the Azure file sync to the endpoint. So it is, easy instead of going accessing the data frequently. This is what, and the addition to this, one is extending the data to the Azure storage. And in the Azure storage right now, we have a capability to, configure the file sync as a, backup protection actually. So now I can use my Azure backup to protect this all the files whichever synced in the Azure the file sync folder, and I can configure that particular files. I want to make a retention of 100 days, and after that I wanted to move. So you don't need to manually go and delete. Actually, you can do the retention things and all, the backup. So you are pushing the data to the Azure file sync, and from there you are using the Azure file backup. That's a preview feature actually. It's not yet released. So that preview feature we can go ahead and leverage to protect the data of Azure files, whatever we sync. We have multiple protections.
Right to that. And then one more thing, just wanted to add, even though you can take a snapshot, which is, it's in preview with the file share snapshot, which Microsoft recently, announced it. So that is another feature which you can, leverage and take the backup of your files. Yes, Neeraj.
That's good. Okay, so where are we in terms of the installation? Sorry.
Yeah, we have just completed this, and then I'll click on the retry.
Okay, so we updated the PowerShell module now. Okay, good. So with this, it will ask us to sign in, right?
Right.
So this doesn't work on the same principle like backup server. You had to have a register. You register with the key, right? So you'll have a registration key that you put in, and that server gets synced up. But in this case, it's not asking for a key, but rather it's asking you to sign in and register, right?
Right. It will ask you the two sign in. One is connected to a subscription, and another sign in with
Yeah, it's little. I'm not sure. I mean, this is a slightly different experience that I'm having. I thought probably, it will ask me for a key rather than asking me to log in. It can be inconvenient for a lot of organization. But anyway, I have to see it.
yeah. Even when I was just writing a blog on this, I just I was getting confused. Okay, what it is asking me, and then okay, it's just something which is new, which Microsoft has
Yeah,
tried.
so this is what even I'm also. Otherwise, I thought probably for server registration, it will give you a key and then you use that key to register. All right, so
So
here you specify a subscription name, resource group, and then you specify the storage sync service that we have created. Okay. All right, good.
again, it is asking you,
It's the second time, huh?
right. As I have earlier mentioned that it will ask two time your credentials. One once you get into log into the subscription, another one which you are going and connecting to a storage account.
Okay. Perfect. So with this, it will register the service. Now, any data that you may changes here, it will also show up in our storage account in file share.
Right.
And you can access it transparently locally at the way you wish to.
Yeah, it will just take some time,
Okay.
So your registration has been completed. I just click OK, and
Let's look at the portal if that server shows up.
yes, it will be. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, let's click on refresh.
Yeah, doing it.
Okay, good. So it shows that file sync test server name. That's their server name, right? It's online. Okay. And it's a Windows 2012. Okay. And agent version is 1.1. Last
Yeah.
seen installed.
Yeah, that is in another work when I just see as I have in 2016 server. So initially it just take the server 2012 as an as an operating system, but then just look it after 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it just refresh to 2016 version.
Okay. All right. Good. So this has completed my registration of the server. Okay.
Now I'm just going and configuring that endpoint, the server endpoint, which is is really it's an important point over here. So what
Yeah. So
I'm going to do is
cloud endpoint was your Azure file share, which is in cloud, and then server endpoint is where the server, the local server file, right?
now it's my registered test over here, and then I'm going and configuring the path, which is already here.
So this is the path. Okay.
So C drive and download. So if I just click on C drive, it just give me that this is an invalid path. Click on download, yes. So now as an important of the cloud tiering. Cloud tiering will show you how many like the volume space which you want it to be free. Either you want it to free at 20% or 50%, then it just make you that that space to be available and
Yeah.
the cloud
So
tiering.
yeah. So
Yeah.
cloud tiering, I think if I'm not mistaken, it will help you say how much data you want to push into cloud. Right. So you say that I want to, at any point of time, I only want to maintain 50% of my local storage. The rest 50% should be in Azure file share. So you can, that's flexibility you have. So you can, go up, down, depending on what's your requirement. Or if you don't want
Yeah.
to, you can disable it. So everything will be, in terms of, it will dynamically determine how much it will keep in the cloud.
I'm just going and creating it right away. And
And
once that
and
created, the last step would be, just we'll verify into the files here. So, which is Azure files here, the data has been synced or not. It will take some time to, provision, not is provision. So, anybody have any questions? Can unmute yourself and ask your questions.
So right now,
Lalit can you just explain that cloud tiering it was? What is it about?
The, the cloud tiering is something. Suppose if you wanted to migrate your 20% or 50% of your data to the cloud or the files here, which you wanted to migrate, so it will make sure that only that much data will be synced, and the same space would be available in your on premises too.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Lalit, just to correct me, the same way which, the store simple, the hardware box works actually. When I'm hitting, the 50% of my store simple storage, after the 50% of the threshold it reaches, all the data start pumping to the cloud. The same way, it's in the, when I reach a 20% or a 50%, what is the data I want to sync? Is it that what it's cloud
so
triering?
yeah, so cloud
Yeah.
tiering, what it will do is it's basically, it allows you to push the data, infrequently access data into Azure files. Now, if you specify percentage, so for example, if you set to free space is set to 50%, that is talking about free space. So basically anything, it will make sure that any data which is beyond 50% of your volume will automatically get pushed out to Azure file. So that's
Okay.
the tiering.
Which
Now,
is outdoor, which has not been used quite a while, right?
yeah, so it will determine, based on that determination, it intelligently
Based
pushes
on
out to,
timestamp, right?
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But it will make sure. So if you say, let's say you enable cloud tiering, and you say that I need 50% of volume space to be free. That means, or let's say you say 20% to be free, 60% to be free. That means 40%. It will utilize from the local volume, and the moment anything beyond that, it will push out to data to Azure, or vice versa. Yeah, that's right. 60%.
So now your data is start syncing over here. Just earlier, you see, you don't have any directories and all. Now you have some directories, right? So the system information, the download, which is sync staging directory, will be all automatically created. So let's just give some time. Your data would be synced over here.
And in
All the
case we need in case we need a specific to the folder where we want to sync all the data, we can create the directory and we can put that all the data. So instead of having multiple folders creating by its own, is it that also we can do it, right?
I don't think so. That is possible for now
So right
because
Oh,
now we are
okay.
syncing. Right now we are syncing one folder, right? So C download, C drive download. So anything under download will get synced. So anything that you create in there, it will sync that. So you have to specify a
Mm,
folder.
I mean the other way it's actually in the storage. I see the add a directory. If I
Yes.
create an add a directory, is it like my file sync will have one folder? Whatever my on-prem of the download folder will get into that directory.
Yes.
Is
It
it
no.
that
So it
add?
is it is going in a share. So we created a
Yeah.
share, and that share is where it is syncing my download folder. So you will have a folder inside the AzureTalk share that we have created. So this is
Okay.
the share that you have, AzureTalk.
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's it from the demo side. And it is just going and getting synced over here. If you wanted to add and modify the settings, uh, you know
So you
you
can
can do
set it,
that.
you can set the tiering, right? So this is, you can see the free space. You can set those tiering.
Again, if you wanted to add one more path, as we know already. So one server, there is only one path, one folder which is supporting now. So if you have one server, you cannot register it again. So one path, one folder, or probably the one directory which is supporting the complete network directory, which is Azure Sync is supporting. That even I'm not aware of, but just get it from the session itself
All right.
when I'm just trying to add, yeah. So
All right. So, thank you, Lalit, for taking out time and giving us a, very useful demo. It's really helpful. Any closing comments, any questions from participants? No questions. So in that case, I will take this opportunity to say thank you, everybody, and please do join us on our Azure Talk forum. We have Azure Talk community group, which is like, you can join. If you are not there, please make sure that you take a point to join our forum. And you can post your questions there. And in case if you have any other questions, any concerns that you have, please do feel free to drop your message in our chat. And we are more than welcome to answer your questions, and we do actively engage with a lot of community members. We have a lot of community members who will help you answer your questions. So please do join our group, and also ask other team members, or your colleagues, and then if they are really interested in learning Azure, please ask them to join our Azure Talk community group. And I've shared that link on the chat. So thank you everyone for joining call today. And after this session, I'll go ahead and post the recording.
yes,
Yeah.
one last thing which I just say sorry to all of the audience, as no one has been noticed that I have I didn't created any download folder over here, which is my profile download folder. What I just sync C drive in the download. So when you just click on the C drive in the download, if you don't have any folder, automatically one folder which is already created here in your on premises and the file server. So that is another good features. If you don't have anything, then it is bi-directional. The folder and everything is getting created, and
Uh,
it is going to be synced.
Yeah, and you mentioned the snapshot, which is a good feature, which I can take at the point in time, multiple, the snapshot, which the say one person doing a change and I want to take a snapshot, and another the same person is doing after 2 hours some changes, and he wanted to roll back to the 2 hour before changes. The snapshot is going to really help. Well, actually, I thought it will be more elaborated. I thought it will be explained. So just wanted to take a point here, the snapshot
Awesome.
thing.
Now I
Yeah.
just put some files and see. You see the performance that all the files and folders has been, including our Azure Talk directory, has been synced.
All right. Good. That's good.
And here is in a snapshot option, so you can take in a snapshot. Thank you, Neeraj.
All right, thank you. So thank you everybody for joining our session today, and keep an eye on our future invitation. We'll have more sessions coming up, and probably we'll have more sessions around Azure, and also we are going to cover Azure DevOps soon. So thank you everybody for joining our session today, and we'll talk to you again next week in coming weeks. Thank you.